And it's been so much, like 95% of my autoimmune issues have been resolved. It had gotten so bad, like right before I started carnivore, I couldn't even handwrite stuff because my hands would hurt so bad. I was having nodules. It was getting to the point where like just wind blowing on my skin hurt, my clothes touching my own skin.
Hey guys, thank you so much for supporting us and watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more and get some of our merchandise like this awesome apron, be sure to check out our website at thecarnivorerevolution.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena and my guest today is Amanda. You guys know her as Carnivorous Me on social media platforms. She has a great YouTube channel and Instagram page. If you haven't seen those, make sure you check them out. Amanda, I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I always like to start with people's story, and your weight loss is just dramatic. You have lost more than 120 pounds in 13 months. And yeah. I just think that the amount of dedication that it takes to do that is just amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so let's talk about your story.
Yeah, so I started carnivore June of 2020, but before that, I've been obese my entire life, adult life, I should say. I was a normal weight when I was a younger kid, then just some trauma happened that my parents weren't ever aware of, and I started eating. And by the time I was 12, 13, I was probably 50 or 60 pounds overweight by that point. Kind of hung out that overweight for most of my teens. Life happened, 20s, and then bam, by the time I hit 32, I was 360 pounds, having to use a walker because I could hardly walk more than a few hundred feet. And I had 17 different comorbidities at the time.
That is crazy.
That's kind of where I started. And then my brother started carnivore, which my brother has convinced me to do so many different diets. It's ridiculous. He convinced me one time for like 3 months to eat boiled white potatoes. I did lose weight, but it's because I stopped eating because I couldn't stand a potato anymore. And he told me about carnivore. I'm just like, yeah, like another one of these like fad things. And then I ended up in the hospital, and that was my like peak point of change. I remember looking over at my husband thinking I was dying. And I realized my life's decisions had gotten me there, like literally laying in that bed, feeling miserable, depressed, anxious. I mean, I was to the point where I was suicidal in the sense of I would every single night tell my husband, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow morning. But I was too scared to do anything about it. So I was just slowly, miserably dying. And I remember looking at him as I was laying in the bed and realized, God, I got myself here. Every choice I ever made led me here. And it was empowering because I realized if my choices got me there, then my choices can get me out of there. And I came home, watched a few Michaela Peterson videos about carnivore, and literally was eating cake one day and carnivore the next. And that was just like the genesis of it for me.
Yeah, I actually, when I started carnivore, I love that you were eating cake one day and carnivore the next, because it was right after my 48th birthday. For my birthday weekend, my girls have a gluten-free baking business, and they offered to make me my favorite cupcakes. And I was like, double the batch, because that's where I was, at that point. I was like, double it. And they made me 24 cupcakes, and I ate 20 of them in 36 hours. And I woke up on Monday morning and I was like, this has got to stop. I can't keep doing this to myself. I was miserable. And I started on Monday morning. It was like, okay, I flipped the switch and I was like, this is what I do now. This is what I eat now. And it changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's dramatic.
Yeah, it really is. And it changed your life in a much more dramatic way than it did mine. I was maybe at that point, I think I had 7 or 8 pounds to lose at that point. I had already been, doing wacky diets for years. And, and so, I had, maybe 8 pounds to lose. And then I gained 18 pounds doing carnivore, which kind of stunk, but it is what it is. And, I ended up losing it eventually, but that was really frustrating because I wanted it to work so badly. But so what was the transition like for you? Were you really tired? I mean, like, what was that like?
It was rough. I've done every diet you could ever imagine. I mean, the potatoes, I've done whole food veganism, Atkins, keto, like I high fat, low fat. I've done it all.
Did you do the cabbage soup diet? Did you do that one too? Me too.
I was willing to try anything. If I could have all the money back of all the dietary supplements and stuff, God, I would be rich. But anyways, It was rough. I knew what to expect to some degree because I'd gone through, the keto flu and stuff. I had terrible diarrhea for like 5 weeks. I mean, really, really bad. I had the cramps, headache, fatigue. I had all of that, the brain fog, the feeling super sluggish. I mean, I had some really bad cravings in the beginning, but I was also a type 2 diabetic. I didn't have to take insulin. I just took an oral medication for it. But that makes it worse being a diabetic because your body's like screaming for sugar all the time too. It was rough, but honestly, 6 weeks in, I was able to ditch the walker. It was very hard and it was a struggle, but I was able to say no more walker. And I just started moving at that point. Nothing, the discomfort and the pain and the suffering that I experienced, it was a fraction of what I'd been experiencing though, being so sick and overweight.
Yeah, it's amazing that that so many people don't know that what we put in our bodies is what, is causing our sicknesses or, our obesity or being overweight or whatever. And so the fact that, you acknowledge that, and you knew it then too, though, right? I mean, you knew that, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I lied to myself. Like I was like hiding a truth from myself all the time. Oh, this one, piece of cake isn't going to hurt me. And oh, a couple donuts, a few bites here. No, it's going to be fine. And that is what got me to 360 pounds. Cause I've had many comments. People are like, how do you even get that fat? I'm like, it's literally one bite at a time. It's not like you go from being 150 pounds one day to 360 the next. It's a slow, subtle changes until one day you're like, oh God, I can't even wipe my own butt anymore. Like, what happened? And you realize it was the one bite at a time that got you there.
Yeah. And we talk about like binge eating, for instance. Were you binging some of the time? Because we talk about that quite a bit in the carnivore space with the binging.
Oh yeah, I'd experienced binge eating. I would not eat, and then all of a sudden I would literally, like, these are shameful things most people won't admit, but I will because I know other people do them. I would go get like a tray of cupcakes, eat most of them, and then be like, oh, I'm done with this. I mean, we're talking, sometimes I'd eat like 10 cupcakes in one setting, throw the rest in the trash can in their container. And then it was such a bad binge. I would get them back out of the container in the trash and then eat them. Like I would do that. I mean, just it would be ridiculous some of the amount of food I would eat at times. And then, of course, after you do it, you're sick. Like I'm so full and disgusted and feeling terrible. And it's just like the binging was such a terrible, terrible thing to experience.
Yeah. Now I did binge. I was bulimic for a long time, probably about 20 years when I was younger. And so I think that's the only reason I didn't weigh 360 pounds is because I was bulimic. And I was jealous of anorexics because they were stronger than me. They were strong enough to just not eat the food at all, right? Like I always felt like they were stronger than me. I was actually jealous of that. It's just such a ridiculous place to be. And looking back on it now that I'm healthy mentally and healthier physically, I can look back and I can see that now. But when I wasn't bulimic, when that stopped, I just started restricting myself. After I would binge like that, I just wouldn't eat for 2 or 3 days, or I would juice fast for a week to make up for it. Like I was on this constant cycle of binging and then punishing myself. Did you do stuff like that too? Like at a last ditch effort, like to try to lose it?
Oh, all the time. But also that's what I discovered. By the time I got 360, every time I did that, I would gain the weight back eventually plus more. And it's like, that's how you get 360 pounds. You do all these crazy, I'm going to do this diet for this amount of time to lose this amount of weight. And then everything will be fine. But I never actually addressed why or how I got there. And that is why it all came back plus more.
So do you think the dumbest diet you ever did was that potato diet you did?
Probably. My husband, bless him. Oh my goodness, he did it with me. And my husband's tall and skinny. He did it with me too. He's done every one of these stupid diets since we've been married for 8 years. Now, he's done every stupid diet I have ever done. Bless the man.
My goodness. I had like almost we have 4 kids, and I had almost my entire family drinking celery juice every morning for months because medical mediums said it was good for you. It was so disgusting. Did you try that? Like all these, so disgusting, but I just knew it was so good for us. So this is one of the reasons I get a little bit of pushback when I come to everybody and I'm like, you should just eat meat. For my kids and even my friends, like, you should really just eat meat. They're like, really? How is this different than the juice diet you were doing 2.5 years ago? Like, it's actually this, it's the same to you. I'm sure you're hearing it the same that you heard that, but I promise this one's different. And people are like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
they're burned out on. I talked to somebody one time who said his wife isn't carnivore because she got burned out on doing all of his things all of these years. And then like at some point, people are just like, I'm done. You do what you want. I think it's great that you feel good, but in 6 months, you'll feel good from doing something else. And I'm just going to be over here kind of doing my own thing. So people just tend to write me off. Do you find that like with your family and your friends, like what did they think and what did they think in the beginning?
My brother did carnivore. My brother-in-law did carnivore. I'm the youngest. My middle sister, my brother gave her this book called Bikini Boot Camp when she was like 18. And it's a low fat, high carb diet. And that has been her Bible forever. And here's the thing, we have the same genetics. And she's kind of written off like, yeah, whatever, you can tolerate high fat, I can't. And so with her, it's been kind of the struggle. My oldest sister too, she never really saw all the craziness of the diets, but she's in the camp of, I'm just going to do my own thing. Yeah, I might be like 100 pounds overweight, but that's okay. You're still like 90 pounds overweight, so it can't be that good. And I think these people who get burned out like that, it's just being consistent and like showing, okay, it's been 6 months. Okay, it's been a year. Oh, it's been a year and a half. You're still doing this. Maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think the longer we do this and the healthier we get, the more people we might bring along for the ride. I think it's so important to be really consistent. And
what's the saying? Proof is in the pudding, despite us not eating pudding, but
yeah, the proof is in the egg pudding. Let's say that.
Yeah, there we go.
Which I absolutely love egg pudding. But so let's talk about like falling off the wagon, because if you have tried, 1,000 diets, and I have tried 1,000 diets, we had fallen off the wagon 1,000 times. That's why we're not still doing those diets. And so that's a really hard place to be trying. Like when I used to do Atkins, because I had 8 or 10 pounds to lose or something, after I had a baby, and it was like the very last part of my weight or something that I was trying to get off. I would do like Atkins for maybe 2 weeks, and then I would make a pound cake when I hit my goal, and I would eat the whole thing and I would gain all 10 pounds back. A pound cake, it turns out, weighs a lot more than a pound when you eat it. You actually gain a lot more than the pound you think the pound cake is, which is really not even a pound. It's a pound of all of the ingredients. That's why they call it a pound cake. But you can gain a lot of weight from eating basically an entire pound cake. And my mouth waters even just thinking about it and talking about that pound cake. Oh my goodness, it was so good. But it's trash to me now. It's not even food, but my stomach growls when I think about it still. But okay, I digress. I got off track there. So what about like falling off the wagon previously versus falling off the wagon now? How does that feel, and what does it look like for you? Is it different?
It's very different. I actually don't consider it falling off the wagon. I consider it having a stumble, because falling off the wagon to me is, I ate half a pizza. Well, just going to go off and eat whatever else I want because, I already screwed up, which would lead me off to binges and things like that. I consider it stumbling. I have fallen on my face a handful of times throughout this journey, and I'm not perfect, and I know I will in the future. It's not to give the excuse I can, but I know myself. I'm imperfect. And it comes to the realization of an alcoholic is an alcoholic for life. And I am a sugarholic, and I will be one for life. And understanding that, that's been a big thing. Now, though, if I have a slip up, it's literally one meal and instantly back to carnivore the next. It's not this, I have this, and then, I screwed up. I might as well have, the cake, the cookies, the pizza, the whole dang whatever restaurant. That's used to be my off the wagon slip ups. And as I said, it's like one meal and right back. Because in that moment in the hospital, like when I really decided this and took responsibility that my choices got me there, I realized the reason I always failed every single other diet. Well, there's two reasons. One, I never actually was able to eliminate my addiction, which is the sugar and carbs. But two is I always saw them as a temporary, I'm going to do this for a narrow window of time. But carnivore, I will do it for life. 95% of my diet will always be meat. Now, the other 5%, maybe at some point in time, I can eat some asparagus and be okay, because I do carnivore because of my autoimmune stuff mostly. and trying to be healthy. But that's the difference. Is before it's like, well, I did this and I failed, but now it's like, I'm doing this for life. There is no failing. You just get back up and keep moving.
Yeah. And I had looked at every diet, kind of the same way. Like it was just a diet. It was to get me to where I wanted to be. And anytime I fell off the wagon or, cheated or whatever, it would last all day. Sometimes it would last weeks. And while I haven't honestly done that since I started carnivore. I haven't had any sugar until recently. So it's been over 2 years for me. And recently we were making a cake for somebody. I was helping my girls with a cake. And for the very first time in more than 2 years, there was some frosting on my hand and I licked it off. And that did lead to a couple of little teaspoons of, oh, let me just taste it for texture, And then I realized my heart was racing. And I feel like I caught myself in time. But I have had some instances with some keto treats. I made it 2 years without having any keto treats at all. And then on a vacation not long ago, everybody else was buying stuff. And I was like, well, I'll just have one little, Quest cookie or whatever. And it led me to a week of those kinds of things. Have you had anything like that happen? Like any little instances where you think, well, this isn't so bad, so I'll go ahead and have it?
No, mine's either all or nothing. Because I know that was the problem with keto for me, was all the little keto replacement meals, like making a keto pizza. It's like that was the bridge to eating a actual full carb pizza. And that's the thing I love about carnivore, is the simplicity, but I'm not trying to imitate foods that make me feel like crap. And keto, I did that all the time, and it just made me miss the actual thing. And then, of course, eventually I would go back and eat the actual thing because I missed it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did more substituting in the beginning than I do now. But if everybody else is because my family isn't carnivore, my husband is mostly carnivore, but my kids are not. Our oldest daughter just moved out, so now there's 5 of us left in the house. And our son is 20, he just turned 21. And so he's gone a lot. He works a full-time job. He's not usually here for meals. So he doesn't eat the way I would like him to eat. And our girls that still live at home are 14 and 16, the two that, that are still with us all day long. And I really try to make sure they don't eat a lot of sugar and a lot of processed foods, but it is really hard. And so when they are having pizza, I a lot of times will make like a sausage crust pizza. And it's interesting because I do eat more of that than I would eat if it was a steak. If it's the substitute for something, I do eat more of it. And I don't make those things as much as I used to. I just, recently we had company, somebody had brought pizza over. It's always pizza for some reason. Somebody had brought pizza over and I just made, a couple of trays of wings and shared. And I was like, oh, here I made wings. And then I just ate the wings. And so I'm kind of getting better about that and not needing that substitute when other people are having that. And I think that's a stumbling block for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. Feeling isolated or left out because you're not partaking, I think that's just more modern, or maybe more Western civilization lately, of just feeling the shame if you're not indulging. Because how many times have you experienced like someone's like, it's just a bite, just have a little bit. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I'm not a moderator. I have no ability to moderate. A bite is like, give me the whole dang cake kind of thing. I think people are becoming a bit more understanding, but I do agree it's a stumbling block of feeling like you're isolating yourself over food when it's just food. You literally eat it for nutrients and then you move on.
Yeah, we should be eating to live instead of living to eat. And I think so many of us, have lived to eat. And I think in our modern society, people are living to eat. Everything is about meals and where we're eating. And I have actually been embarrassed at the way I have behaved in the past with one bite of something. Like, like you said, I would take that one bite because somebody was saying, oh, just try it. And then before you know it, I'm ordering dessert and I'm ordering, and then, everybody wants to go out later and everybody's surprised because I get, the ice cream everybody else is getting too, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm taking the day off. Do you remember that? Like taking the day off. Yeah. That's what I would say. Oh, I'm taking the day off. And I would eat, 5,000 calories of processed carbohydrates and stuff that day. And I was just miserable. It's really just not worth it.
No, not in the least. I watched a video, I don't remember her name, but it was actually really interesting the way she said it. And she clearly articulated it. She said, imagine if you were building a house and you took 365 days to build the house. But let's say, 10% of the days 36 days out of the year, you're like, you know what, I'm going to save some money and I'm just going to go buy the cheapest material to put into this house. So you're building this house and you spend 36 out of the 365 days doing cheap materials? Is that house going to be in good working order? What if it's the plumbing or the electrical that use the cheap materials on that day? And that's exactly what cheating does to us, because what we eat, that is materials for reproducing and replicating cells in our body, and we're giving it cheap sustenance. What do we think that it's doing to our house, which is our body? I'm like, that is actually really, really well said, because it's just like, it's just this one cheat this one time, but we have no idea how that's going to impact down the road. Maybe that one meal, not to like freak anybody out, but maybe that one meal led to that one cancer cell that turned into cancer. Like, how do we know? You know?
Yeah, we don't know what these foods are doing to us. And the more, the more we dive into all of this stuff, you see it too. It does get a little bit scary, and we all have some cancer cells in us. And so we should definitely be doing everything that we can to stunt that and stop it. And I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Do you hear the dog barking? Hang on.
I don't.
Okay, she stopped. None of us are perfect. And, obviously we don't know what would happen if we all ate a completely clean diet from birth, if we would have these instances of cancers and other sicknesses, chronic diseases, autoimmune diseases. We don't know what would happen. But one thing we do know is that a lot of our modern diseases are caused by our modern foods. And most autoimmune diseases are caused by inflammation, which is absolutely caused by food.
Yes. Yeah, because I have scleroderma. Remember, he actually laughed in my face. I did not go back to that doctor.
What in the world?
And they did some blood work. I ended up at the Mayo Clinic. Long story short, I ended up with the 3 diagnoses. And it's been so much, like 95% of my autoimmune issues have been resolved. It had gotten so bad, like right before I started carnivore, I couldn't even handwrite stuff because my hands would hurt so bad. I was having nodules. It was getting to the point where like just wind blowing on my skin hurt, my clothes touching my own skin. All of that is gone. I experienced what's called Raynaud's phenomenon, and blood vessels will constrict and your entire finger turns white. It's painful. I haven't had a single episode from, I think, 2 months in of any Raynaud's. And this is the longest I've ever gone not having it. Just the improvements I have cured, reversed, whatever you want to call it, my type 2 diabetes. I am no longer a type 2 diabetic. A lot of people get kind of hung up on that because they're like, I bet if you had some, carbs, it'd spike. Actually, it doesn't. I've had my A1C and my fasting insulin checked. My fasting insulin was like really bad. I was very insulin resistant, and now it's normal. My A1C is normal, which makes sense because my, fasting insulin's normal. And I've actually checked the days I've fallen off. I've checked my blood sugars to see, and they are completely normal.
That's really amazing. I ran into a friend at Walmart, a friend and her husband. I think it was a month ago. I think a month ago yesterday. And we started talking about food and the way I was eating and stuff like that. I can't stop once I start, like I mouth vomit, I word vomit all over people when I start talking about it. And of course, I glanced in their cart while we were standing there talking, right? Because they're talking about how I've lost weight and, complimenting me, which I'm very grateful for. And, I'm very gracious about it. Thank you so much. I only eat meat, right? Like that's how I started. And I'm glancing in their cart, Salisbury steak, soda, things like that. Because I can't help it. I look at everybody's cart. It wasn't just, I noticed what everybody's buying. And we talked about it for maybe 20 minutes standing there in one of the aisles at Walmart. And she sent me a message about 15 minutes after I left saying that they had put everything back and they had bought eggs and they had bought meat. And I was super excited for them. She had been taking diabetes medication for more than 30 years for type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Nobody ever sat down and had like a serious conversation with her about how if she would stop eating carbs and sugar. She knew sugar caused it because everybody knows that, but nobody ever sat down and had like a heart to heart with her. Like, you're going to take this medication for the rest of your life. These are the side effects you're going to have from this medication. And nobody ever sat down and had like that real conversation with her about how if she eliminated the carbs and sugar from her diet, she wouldn't need that. They just told her to dose it. If she ate the stuff, just use more insulin or whatever, which is just a ridiculous way
to manage it.
Yes.
Is what they teach. This is how you manage it. And actually, so the assumption that everybody knows that sugar causes diabetes. So I thought that too, right? I had someone leave a comment on one of my videos about some documentary about veganism. So of course, I don't remember what it's called, but go on Netflix and I'm like, quickly like going through it. There's a vegan doctor, Greg something. I don't know his name. I don't know if you've seen, he's on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He straight faced, no lie, in this documentary, looks at the camera and he's like, sugar doesn't cause diabetes, saturated fat does. I'm like, how are you a doctor? Like, how are you a doctor? And literally, so I'm like, how? I just was baffled by this. How can this be coming out of this man's mouth? And I'm just like, oh my God. And people watch this. It's on Netflix. It
Yeah,
is literally on Netflix. People watch this, gave it lots of thumbs ups. I'm just like, oh my God. People believe this.
yeah,
There are people who do not believe type 2 diabetes is caused by sugar.
I know it's insane. When I eat just fat, my blood sugar doesn't move at all. When I eat, carbs or even too much protein, my blood sugar goes up. So that is obviously not true. It's just such a dumb statement. But anyway, so this family is doing really well. They're all doing it, including their teenage son. She
That's
actually was able to
amazing.
quit using her medication within like 2 weeks. She was able to quit using it. Her blood sugar got up a little bit higher than she wanted it to the other day, and so she started taking. I think she's using metformin. Started taking it just once a day now, but she was like heavily medicated all the time from her sugar. It's just so exciting to watch that in real time. And she sent me a picture of her face the other day, comparing it to a picture from, like 2 months ago. Like there's a huge difference. And I think people just don't know. I wish everybody could know. I wish everybody could see what we see
I wish everybody
now that we
would
know.
do 90 days of it. People focus on, oh my God, what I can't have cake. I can't have those Cheetos or Doritos or those sodas anymore, versus not looking at what you can't have, but what you gain by doing it. I mean, that is, I think, the big problem, especially with binge eaters. Tell me I can't have something and my brain's like obsessing about it. Like, you can't have cake, Amanda. And my brain's like, cake, 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 go eat a cake, go eat a whole cake, versus I choose not to have it. But that's a different story, but I agree wholeheartedly.
I remember, speaking of cake, when I was pregnant with our first child, so this was,
Uh-huh.
she's about to turn 23. So this was, like 23 and a half years ago. I was probably 6 or 7 months pregnant. I wanted cake so bad. I wanted cake. And I went to the grocery store and I bought a quarter sheet cake that you buy for a child's birthday party when they're going to have 15 or 20 friends over, and ate. And my hands were shaking. I remember that I bought one of those little cupcake that was like shaped like a bunny rabbit or something, so I could eat it with my fingers on the way home, because I had to have the frosting and the cake.
Oh my
And then I got
goodness.
home and ate. I left like this much. I'm not kidding. A quarter of a sheet cake. I left like this much. My husband came home and he went to the kitchen. He said, "Did you buy that today?" I said, "What? I saved you some." Like I really thought it was I really thought it was okay. I gained 80 pounds with my first pregnancy because I let loose. It was like, so that's what I would have been. If I wasn't so obsessed with restricting after a binge, I would have been where you were. So I totally sympathize with that. If I hadn't done the drastic things that I did after my binges, whether, after the bulimia stopped, it was the juice fast or the just restricting my eating or eating 200 calories a day or whatever the crazy things that I did was, if I hadn't done those things, I definitely would have stayed that big. I would have stayed bigger if I hadn't done that. I learned my lesson a little bit. Then I gained 60 and then 40 and then 30 with our 4 children. But it was hard. It was hard because I wanted the cake. I wanted to go get a cake and eat the whole thing, So yeah, that's my experience with cake. I would literally eat almost an entire quarter sheet cake in one day. And I thought that it was okay. I really did. So I agree with you though, about people thinking about what they can't have instead of thinking about what they can have. Like I am eating things that I would never eat because I was always on a diet. So ribeyes and butter and ribs and lots of egg yolks and all of those things. I'm eating so many things that I wouldn't eat before because I was on a diet. Whereas when I was on a diet, I was always substituting the things I wanted anyway, like sugar-free cake instead of regular cake, and fat-free cake instead of regular cake, and Smartwells cookies. Is that what they were called? Smartwells? Yeah. Snackwells.
Snackwells, yeah.
Those Snackwells cookies. Like I always had these substitutes and I thought that was okay because they were healthy. But so what is your favorite carnivore meal? What do you eat that's your favorite now?
Ribeye. Well, actually, we make grilled chicken wings. I make a homemade buffalo sauce that I love. That's probably my favorite, and then ribeyes after that.
Yeah, wings are my go-to. I think it's because when I was little, I ate a lot of wings. We used to go to a place called Wings and Things in Fort Lauderdale. That's where I was from. And they had like I think it was like 10-cent wings or something. Now a wing's like $2, right? When you go to a restaurant, it's like
so expensive.
I know. And they break them in half. It's not even the whole wing. You get, the two parts separately and they call that a wing. It's ridiculous. But I buy the bigger ones at home where it's still connected. But I think wings for me, it's one of those things when I was little, that was what we did was we went out, we didn't eat out very much. We didn't have a lot of money, but we went for 10-cent wings and I would gobble up those wings. And then I cut myself off at some point because they weren't healthy. That wasn't something that I should be eating because it's fried. And so I didn't have them for years and years and years. And as soon as I became a carnivore, that became my thing. And I eat wings, unless I'm doing like lion or something, I eat wings at least once a week, sometimes more often. I don't make my own buffalo. You do? Yeah. I mean, it is like wings are the best. They are so good. And the other day,
it's a palate cleanser for me. Cause like if I'm doing beef, I'm like, cause I'm not a huge chicken fan, funny enough, but then I'm like, some chicken wings. Yes, let's do that.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. There is just something about some really good chicken wings. I mean, I even like them cold. I couldn't eat them cold for a long time because of a post-COVID issue where things taste and smell rotten. After 2 years and 8 months, it cleared itself up last week. It was just
good.
I woke up one morning and I could smell stuff. I literally smelled skunk every day, multiple times a day for 2 years and 8 months. And cold meat, there were times I would go to take the cold chicken wings out of the fridge to put them in the air fryer, and I would like my eyes would well up with tears, like the smell was so bad. And I took one of those wings out without even thinking about it the other day and put it in the air fryer. And I thought, that smells like cold chicken. And boy, I took a couple of bites of it cold with some salt. And I remember loving cold chicken years ago, before I got this stupid problem with my taste and smell. So that was really just like, for me, it made me cry, like chicken wings. Aww. And being able to eat them again, all the ways I used to eat them. It's really amazing because wings are definitely my thing. So wings and ribeye for you. And do you fast at all?
I do intermittent fasting. So I'll eat around 10 and then 5, and then I don't eat anytime outside that window. I've done some 72-hour fasts, but I am not a big proponent of fasting with binge eating, because tell me I can't have something and my brain obsesses, because now I don't think about food except what are we going to have for dinner, take it out, thaw it in the morning. But when I fast, it's like everything sounds good. Like it's ridiculous. Things I normally don't like, ground beef, I do not like salivate over, but it's like, oh my God, ground beef sounds so good. And I found for myself, it's dangerous doing longer fasts because it puts me at risk of having a binge.
Yes. And that was me in the beginning for the first year. I had that, like you said, the all or nothing kind of mentality. So I was fasting a lot and not eating very much. I was eating like 2 hamburger patties every other day. I was starving and I was gaining weight. It was miserable. And, there's all this, all the people talk about priming and people talk about filling yourself till your Thanksgiving. I think Dr. Berry says like Thanksgiving turkey stuff, stuffed. And I have a hard time with that. Like you do. Like if I'm doing that, I'm overeating for sure. Even on a day before a fast, if I'm doing that, I'm overeating, and it brings back those feelings of binging and then restricting. So I understand that. But I just recently started fasting again about a month and a half ago, and it feels pretty good. But I do have to be careful because I get to the point where I'm ready to end my fast and I'm like, maybe I'll go a little bit longer, like it's that, well, I've made it this far, I might as well go farther. And so I can see how that would be tricky. And it was tricky for me in the beginning. So I understand that.
Yeah.
So now one more question. If you had one piece of advice for people out there watching, what would it be?
Honestly, my strongest suggestion for people is reading Atomic Habits. I used to always recommend Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules, and I still do. However, I've read it now 3 times. Atomic Habits changed my life because I realized that is why part of the reason I always failed is I didn't have good habits in place, or I had bad habits that I was kind of emphasizing that made doing things I need to do difficult, like not eating things or being more active, whatever it is. That book was just like a light bulb, and I absolutely love Atomic Habits. My suggestion, like when people come to me, I'm like, read Atomic Habits. Get rid of your carbs and sugars, start carnivore, great. Read Atomic Habits.
That's awesome. Now, I misspoke. I actually do have one more question. I'll put this one before that one. What does a typical day of eating look like for you?
It's pretty plain. 10 o'clock, I'll have 2 eggs, a piece and a half to 2 pieces of bacon I try to drink more water because I'm kind of bad about it. Somewhere between breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'll have water with some like unflavored element. And then for dinner, I'll have, 12 to 14 ounce ribeye with butter, sometimes without, water, maybe a seltzer water in there. And that's literally my day of eating, and that's it.
Yeah, really simple. That's such a great way to do
Mhm.
it. There's not a lot of cooking involved, not a lot of prepping. I do like to mess with recipes and stuff, but that right there is like the perfect day of eating eggs, bacon, and ribeye with butter. I mean, like it doesn't get much better than that.
It's simple. My husband actually does all the grilling and cooking. I used to do all of the cooking, and we're talking like I would make, when we were doing like keto, I would do like homemade sun-dried tomato Alfredo. Oh my God, that'd take me 3 hours to make, and it was delicious. And I do not miss 3 hours of cooking and the disaster in the kitchen. So the deal is he grills and cooks, and I clean everything. I'm like, I'm fine with that. Go for it. Go grill master. Do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like you. That's one of the things I miss the least about the cooking and the way that we used to cook. I mean, I was
Yeah.
75% of my plate with vegetables before. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
It is.
The cutting and the dicing and the cooking or the washing, or I would literally spend an hour and a half or 2 hours making dinner for
Yeah.
all of us. And I don't have to do that anymore. And so if nothing else, it's given me my time back,
Yes.
So wonderful. So
Mhm.
wonderful. Amanda, thank you for visiting with me today. It was really nice to finally get to talk to you in person. I just think your story is amazing, and I think you're doing great things.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a lovely conversation.
And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time here on the Carnivore Revolution.